All right, YouTube, you may have seen that Trump doesn't seem to be a fan of the UN's latest moves with regards to Israel, but it's not entirely clear here what's going on. I will say this: the UN is antiquated, retarded, and pointless. We shouldn't even bother to have a UN. It's utterly toothless when it makes a decision. The Israelis aren't going to listen to them on settlements because what the fuck is the UN going to do? Recommend embargoes that nobody has to listen to in the first place as binding? The UN's pointless. The UN dicked around for years and years involving North Korea, with China saving them from every possible ill under the sun, until very recently when they finally allowed sanctions to go through. The US, until just now, has repeatedly sheltered Israel from sanctions over and over while giving them free taxpayer money. I absolutely oppose that. But the Israeli settlements in the West Bank are bad. It's wrong. That's not their land. It was clearly. I'm not talking about the UN partition. I don't really give a fuck about what the UN says. UN be hanged. It doesn't matter. What really matters here is that there are people who resided in that region, now Palestinians, that were there for a very, very long time, have already been abused, have already been forced largely off their land. All of a sudden, Israel, not the UN, Israel says, okay, we're delineating these areas, go there, that's done. Gaza Strip and West Bank. The West Bank is more functional, I think, than the Gaza Strip at this point. I think that's fairly clear. It might have to do with the population density of the latter. And then the Israelis start building settlements there. So you withdrew from this land, said, okay, well, this is, it's part of Palestine, whatever. Now you're moving back in. You can't see why this would be a problem. The Israeli state is bipolar. This is the biggest problem. The Israeli state is not doing itself any favors by constantly perturbing those around it. And that is what it has done. The old tired argument of Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, the only Western country in the Middle East. No, they're not. It's a functioning democracy. So is Turkey, technically speaking. Look at what they're doing, dicking around right now in Syria. Fucking around in that region. Fucking around with the Europeans, trying to say, if you don't let us in, we might have to let these 4 or 5 million refugees across into Southeast Europe. Good luck, because you're going to have to let them have free movement under your laws. Fucking bastards. That's basically what's happening there. The Israelis are also not doing themselves any favors by stealing U.S. nuclear triggers in the past, which most people don't even remember happened, by taking U.S. uranium through espionage in the past, through developing multi-stage, apparently, or at least boosted nuclear weapons outside of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. I would not have any problem with Israel. Sometimes, people who are sort of on the fringe of the alt-right are cast as, well, you're an anti-Semite, you just hate Jews generally. I don't. I don't have any problem if Israel's there. But if they're going to withdraw from the West Bank, if it's going to be delineated by everybody and their mother as a separate sovereign nation or to-be sovereign nation, you cannot move back into it and begin building settlements. Not because of some arcane, worthless international law that nobody cares about, but because of common sense. It doesn't do Israel any favors. What are they taking over? Some strips of steppe, a few hills. That's all they're taking. Are there any great resources of value there? Is there a massive diamond mine there? Are there a bunch of oil fields in the West Bank? No. It's largely pastoral. That which isn't, outright urban ghetto or something along those. It's been heavily damaged over time by lack of resources and maintenance. Other than that, there's not a whole lot there. Some suburbs of Jerusalem, some hills, a little bit of steppe. That's what they're inheriting. Wonderful. What a wonderful promised land your deity gave to you. Here's the thing. If the Jews want to have a homeland there, let them have a homeland. But you can't say, okay, this is our homeland, and by the way, some of this neighboring land that belongs to other people is also our homeland. Because if that continues, it just goes on forever, and the state just slowly imperializes everything around them. And the idea of, they're the only democracy, or they're the chosen people, that does not sway me. I don't believe in a wholly chosen people, number one. And they're not any more a democracy than some of their neighbors. Egypt and Turkey, technically speaking, are functioning democracies in the same token. And they're about, as stable as Israel. Israel is not a completely stable piece of the world. When people look at them and they say, look at how wealthy they are compared with the Muslims around them, this is evidence that, their religion is true or they're holy or something. No, it's evidence of the U.S. giving them free billions of dollars a year plus free weapons. They have to pay relatively little than they would otherwise have to pay for their military. I realize their military expenditures are high anyway, but they get civilian-based aid. There are all sorts of U.S. firms that prey upon evangelicals to send food and clothing and so forth over there. They get a huge amount of tourist money. They get free weapons systems. They're like the first one that got the F-35, for instance, and then Saudi Arabia after that. Like the Israelis and Saudi Arabians are more important than like the UK or France or something like that. Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. They have nuclear weapons. They haven't been pressured to sign the non-proliferation treaty because the U.S. keeps blocking sanctions that would, by the way, keep us from giving them aid. They get billions of free dollars a year unconditionally. I think this is a lopsided arrangement. I do happen to agree with the UN that the Israeli settlement should be condemned. They shouldn't be there. That's not their land. And Israeli imperialists over time have said, yeah, we need to settle as much as possible because when the partition eventually happens, anything we hold will be ours. That's their stated goal. But, and here's the big but, the UN doesn't matter. Nobody gives half a cockfuck what the UN says. Everybody ignores the UN. Why does it even exist? And those blue hat troops that they field, they couldn't even suppress a few Rwandans with machetes. What the hell are they going to do in an advanced nation? When people here in the United States, they say, martial law will be declared. Obama will invite the UN troops in to take control under an internationalist cabal. Them and whose army? The UN's forces would not be capable of suppressing even the smallest state in the United States. They'd be outgunned. The UN is worthless, toothless. We shouldn't even be a member of the UN. It's pointless. The UN should be scrapped entirely. NATO is enough. We don't need the UN. It's retarded. If we want to give aid to people, there are plenty of organizations that can be feasibly created on paper and then staffed and rolled up and sent to some country that's in need to give them aid. Red Cross is another example. Red Cross, turns out, they haven't done shit in Haiti because they're too busy running drugs for the Clintons. Now, fuck the UN. The UN's not going to solve the problem of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. It's not going to happen. If the UN were to take every available man that it has, with all of their pea shooters and little blue helmets, send them over to Israel, they'd all get butchered within a day. The Israeli civilians alone, a handful of them, could mow down every UN troop. That's how poorly they function. It's how bureaucratically strangulated their forces are. They are powerless. Any randomly selected halfway decent nation on this planet has more power than the UN. The UN has never mattered. There was a time when it was seen as a glowing opportunity for diplomacy. Do you know what it's turned into? A dick-wagging contest between the major powers of the world and all of their vassals. That's all it is. It's all it ever will be. It's pointless. This will not solve the problem of Israeli imperialism, even if fundamentally I agree in spirit with the concept that, yeah, the settlement shouldn't be there. Well, no shit. But the UN's not going to be the one to solve the problem. I can understand if Trump is saying here that the US is going to ignore the UN or withdraw from the UN or say at the very least the UN is pointless, then I agree with him. If Trump, on the other hand, is saying, oh, we're going to hardball everybody on behalf of Israel, I would disagree with him. I don't think we should do that. I don't think that it's not even going to matter. The UN resolution is not going to impact the Israelis. They will ignore it. And the UN will do nothing. If the UN will do nothing with regards to North Korea or Chinese human rights abuses or, genocide in some randomly selected part of the world, out and out bloodshed where hundreds of thousands are dying, what the fuck are they going to do about a few settlements in the West Bank? You think they're really that concerned about it? Is there oil there? No? Then they don't care. They don't care. They will do nothing. It's bureaucratic nonsense. That's about all. Peace out.